And here we are for this week's call-in show. Oh my God, am I excited about this. Last week's call-in show was fucking dope. We had a lot of people call in. It was very exciting. And I just wanted to thank everybody who could join us last week. Without going any further into it, I'm just going to pass it over because we were just having a pretty dope conversation about something previous to this. And so I'm just going to stop talking now and see who wants to pick it up from here.
Um, yeah, we were just having a really dope conversation. I was like, oh, dope conversation.
We were
that's
about
something
about understanding that
different.
you can have two conversations,
Yeah.
really, and they're the same
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
You can have a very general conversation about life as a whole, your relationship to the moment, choices that you make versus things you hold on to, and things you let go of, so on and so forth. But you can hear that and go, oh wow, that's a very general thing that applies to a lot of stuff. Or you can translate it into what you are specifically obsessing over in terms of a need or a fear. And you don't know you're doing that unless you're self-honest enough to go, yeah, it's kind of a need and a fear. And then watching for the distortion, because that's what it is. It's watching for the distortion. It's like, is that really about me? Or is there another way to look at that? Right. And that goes back to the, maybe I'm wrong. We were talking about that previously, like, because we're always so sure that everything's about the story of me. But the story of me is not reality. So reality is not about the story of you. You're just translating it that way.
And if you're making reality about you, like everything you hear is going to be translated based on that. Like getting offended when someone says something that, like, they're not even necessarily referring to that person, but they can get triggered. And we see that in social media comments all the time. It's like someone responds to a video in a certain way and someone else responds assuming that they're maybe triggered, and maybe they're not, they were just sharing something. And then you'll see someone defend just because they're jumping to a certain conclusion that has to do deep down, whether they realize it or not, with them. And so in everything that you do, is your life, is that focus on what you do about prioritizing how you're doing and like how you're doing personally instead of what's going on in reality. And like that prioritization like shifts the filter, shifts the thoughts, shifts the experience, when it's more me prioritized, it's the tension, it's the rigidity, it's the hesitation. And when it isn't, when that's inverted, it's like there aren't so many reasons to be tense. And like that can be a priority. Is the heartbeat thing, for example, like you get a certain amount of heartbeats throughout your life. There's some, I think, sect of monks that believe that or kind of follow that and prioritizing. It's just a relaxation sort of thing. But even just feeling that, like, okay, if that can be priority, then getting worked up, getting tense, reacting to stuff, like we're gonna mitigate those, or at least keep tabs, keep that in check a little bit instead of just coming up with reasons that you should maintain that tension, and prioritizing your experience right now.
Yeah. It's the difference between trying to get through your life, quote unquote, which is just a story, versus working on your relationship with here and now, which is always a very general thing with infinitely variable skins. Right? It's always the same thing, you here now, with different versions of all of those things. And so there are very general things that go along with you through each and every moment, like your capacity to make it about the story. Right. So these are the things. It's like, well, you could let go of that. And you're like, oh, what is that? Like, in what sense? And then you look at a part of your life. Maybe, I don't know, you're letting go of a friend, or maybe you're letting go of a job, or maybe you're moving to a new city. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, yeah, you're right. I don't have to make that about me. See, it's a very general thing that applies everywhere. Everywhere. But if you are focused on your story, you're going to think, and it's going to sound like the person who's saying that is speaking of specifically about that story, which is impossible because they don't know your story. Right? They don't know your story. And that's how easy it is to get confused between what we think is happening versus what is actually happening. And it's not until we're willing to go, maybe I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, that we start paying attention accordingly. And that's when we start actually getting in information. That's when we start actually learning. That's where we start seeing opposing viewpoints. That's where we start seeing things from a different perspective that's not quite so narrow-minded, because we are in fact willing to feel that insecurity, willing to feel that uncertainty, and then just be informed by it.
Yeah, willing to relax that sense of control for a bit, even like cut yourself some slack as you're going through things, as you're experiencing things, and that uniqueness, like the inability to know someone's story, like know the story they're telling themselves, and the inability for anyone to know mine that I tell myself or focus on when I do, think about something about myself. It's like it's impossible. And the experience that we're all having right now, even that is like impossible to see another's perspective or someone else's perspective of how something is going. But there is that, like, there is the connection through that is like, we can't know each other's, but when there isn't so much of a story in the way or an assumption that's, related to your personal story that you just keep staring at, like there is more of an ability to pay attention to what's going on and like start to just build faith in yourself and like really see that as, okay, there's opportunities right here to relax a little bit more, right here to relax a little bit more. Oh, focused on this, relax a little bit more. But yeah, that's
I like the idea, or the image that comes to mind right now is that it feels like I would be a cup, and when I'm having an assumption and I think I know exactly what's going on, the cup is filled to the brim with water. And when I admit, or not admit, but when I acknowledge that, maybe I might be wrong, a little bit of that assumption pours out of the cup and there's a little bit of space. And so, it's hard to fill already filled cup. And I know that analogy has been used possibly in martial arts, but it is very true. It's hard to fill an already filled cup, and the cup is usually filled to the brim with assumptions. But just giving yourself a little bit of room to say, maybe those assumptions might not be right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, a couple of them pour out, and then there's just space for more of anything else to be poured in.
It's like all the assumptions are parts of that cup. A cloud, just clouds, the more that you're making, the more sure you think you are. It's like the cloudier that shit's going to be. And seeing that, oh, these are entirely unknown, it's like that's when it starts to clear and there's actually space to see what's going on and looking at it, and seeing, yeah, it's a question mark, but like at least you're paying attention to it. Like at least you're seeing what's actually going on instead of through a serious filter sometimes.
Yeah. I want to take a moment and remind our listener, if you are here live, that you can join us for up to 10 minutes. Just go to dualisticunity.com/live. And that will take you to a form where if you fill it out and you agree that you're going to be part of the podcast episode, you can join us for up to 10 minutes. Shoot the shit with us. You can tell us a little bit about what you're doing. You can tell the audience a little bit about yourself or your point or your question or anything like that. It's a great way to engage with the community and all the listeners as a whole. Even if they're not here live, they will be listening after the fact. So that said, we actually do have somebody who is currently in the queue, and we are going to let them in. They would like to speak about speaking with authority. And I believe that this is our friend Ben. It is, in fact, Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Ben, how the hell are you, man?
What is up, dude?
Oh, doing just fine.
Hold on, Kenny. All right. That was on me. We're good to go.
Okay, great. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing just good. Just fine. I'm a little sweaty. I just came back from a run. Um, but yeah, kind of something. I was on the group yesterday and I wanted to say something, but then the time ended. But it's all good because there's always more time. There's always the next moment.
Very
And
often.
what's up?
I said very often, yes. And I'm glad that you came back so we could continue the conversation.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, so my topic was speaking with authority. I think this is something that I'm struggling with that I've like accumulated a lot of like knowledge over the past year in terms of like healthiness, like holistic health, like the benefits of sunlight and reducing your seed oil consumption and just kind of like reducing the amount of toxins that you put on your body. And I want to speak about it without caveating everything I'm going to say beforehand. Because I find myself like before I want to talk about like say the benefits of sunlight, I always feel like I start off with, okay, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I don't know if any of what I'm saying is true. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions. But the benefits of sunlight are blah blah blah. And I like made a video on Instagram about it earlier this year, and like I wanted to say exactly what the benefits were from what I've read, but I kind of like ended up fumbling what I was going to say, and all I ended up saying was there's a lot of benefits. And that's pretty much it. I didn't get into any of them because I have this fear of like I'm saying something that someone's going to take without practicing their own awareness. But I think that fear is like rooted in a sense of control that I am saying it in the right way and that I have the authority to speak on it. Like I kind of just want to express what I'm expressing without first caveating it.
Right.
Because like, I don't know if you're familiar with that feeling.
Absolutely. I caveat everything. And I'll admit it's hard to do. It's hard to do because there's it's always tempting to want people to look to you as a source of information and knowledge. It's always tempting to want to look to yourself like you actually know, right? But as you said earlier, you've read a lot about these things, right? That's it. You haven't done the research yourself. You haven't done the studies on the body. You haven't done any of these things. It's not that these studies stand alone in isolation. There's always other things that are contributing factors. I mean, for years, there was the whole study about, cholesterol being extremely bad for you. And then over time, it was realized that stress is also a huge factor in how your body processes cholesterol. So there's always more to it. And I think that although it's not satisfying to have to admit that, right, there is a level of honesty there that the world could benefit from that not enough people are doing. I mean, there are Dr. Oz's and shit all over the place telling you exactly how this is going to save your life and fix everything. They don't know. They don't know, but it's easy to prey upon people who want a silver bullet. It's easy to prey upon people who want someone to know the answer, and that person just happens to be you. And I relate to this. I understand because this is why I caveat all the time. This is why it's important, is because then the listener's benefiting, not just me.
Yeah.
I-
Right. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I totally get that. And I saw your article that you posted in the Discord of like, it kind of questions the whole seed oil movement, that the anti-seed oil movement.
And I wanted to say thank you for that, because your review of the restaurant thing was entertaining, right? But it actually made me go, I really don't know what the fuck this is all about. So I went and read a number of articles. That was just the one that I found to be the most informative and backed in terms of like, data and research and whatnot. But it actually made me go and look into what this conversation has been, because I honestly, like, I heard it from Andrew a couple of years back about, seed oils being a thing. And I'm like, I have no idea. And I haven't looked into it ever since. And so I appreciated the fact that your review made me go and look into it. You know, and what I enjoyed about the fact was that, again, correlation is not necessarily causation. And so although the seed oil thing isn't the silver bullet in saving your life, it does lead to people eating less junk food, right? Which is good for them. So I mean, there's that argument as well. So it's not to say like the whole thing's, without purpose or without benefit, but yeah, as always, it's always just sharing what you know, but saying like I'm open to more information. Like I'm sharing what I know with passion. I'm sharing what I know with enthusiasm. I'm just not saying I know it all. Just that this is what's driving me. And I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just that again, like it would be easier to just go, I know, hear what I've got to say. It would be easier.
Yeah, I think with any sort of like feeling, oh, am I an expert? Am I not? Do I know enough? Like that sensitivity right there is super important, but it can also, kind of get in the way of like you just expressing that and even understanding, holy shit, hold on. I've been so sensitive recently to like when I lose my train of thought that it'll just like cut so quick. But yeah, I think understanding that you only know what you know, and like, oh yeah, with being like an expert at anything, it's like there is an experience there, I think, when it's like you're making it less about you, like the least about you as possible in sharing something like as a need, as a bridge to some other understanding instead of just, sharing an experience with something. And like when that is more the priority, like seeing that there aren't so many silver bullets or answers necessarily, it's more of just like a personal sort of experience. Like this has been my experience, which I think, if you're just showing that, then there doesn't need to be so much concern for that. And that's why it's like the actions as opposed to, the reading and learning is super important too. Like actually understanding it from your own perspective.
Yeah, I enjoy this topic, Ben, like speaking with authority, because it was something that I thought could be done, because I thought you could reach a place where you were an expert, where you could be that source, where you could be the expert with at least the up-to-date information. But that was based on the assumption that you could accumulate like a majority of information on any topic, and that can't be done because topics are always, you can always explore a topic further, deeper, and from a new perspective. So there's no way that you could get to a majority of learning about any one thing, because that assumes that thing is finite. But if things are infinite, you can just keep going. So at this moment, I would say that I would speak with no authority, but I would speak with genuine enthusiasm. And I would speak, if from any perspective, if I had to pinpoint it to one, the student's perspective and not the teacher's. I'm just another student exploring something that I'm extremely curious about, and I'm loving it. And I would love to share my current research with no authority, but nothing but genuine curiosity.
And it promotes engagement, right? Like if you go into it that way, you're just like, hey, this is everything I know. If you know something I don't, fucking let me know, and we can have this conversation, right? Like that's the benefit of not being the authority. You can talk to people.
I agree, and first of all, I appreciate you like watching my video. That's pretty cool. And second of all, I think what talking about like being an expert, I think there's two perspectives you can have on it. The first one is where the expert implies that you've learned everything there is to know, and that's kind of like an egotistical expert, expert from the ego. But then there's also expert of, I am continuously learning this subject and I'll never stop learning this subject, but I'm really enthusiastic about it. And I'm going to go as far as I can in the rabbit hole and share information I come across just because it makes me excited. And I get really excited when I talk about like the holistic health space. And I actually, that article you posted kind of inspired me to record a podcast episode on seed oils. So that'll be coming out And I kind of talk about not I think I expressed in the best way I could at the time of recording that like please do your own research. And I'm just sharing like information that you said like correlation does not necessarily equal causation. I get into like some research where seed oil consumption is rising at the same time that Alzheimer's and obesity and diabetes is rising. And that's an interesting correlation, but that doesn't mean that those two are directly related. Like it's probably because, you know, there's more to it. There's red 40, there's like soy lecithin and other like polyunsaturated fats in processed food. So if you recognize seed oils are just one part of like eating a processed food, like, and you reduce it, you're going to kind of take out all the other factors too. And that could be more of the contribution to you being healthier.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is nothing wrong with adding a little bit of reasonability to it. It's just uncomfortable because then it's just like, it's not that simple. And it would be so nice to be able to tell people it's simple, you know, but there is not that. Ben, thank you for coming on to the episode, man. We appreciate you being here.
As always.
Yep. Absolutely, man. I love, you know, love what you guys are doing, what you've always been doing, and so glad to be a part of this, whatever it is.
Appreciate
So,
it. Do you want to
yeah, man.
plug your podcast quickly?
Sure. It's called the Ebb and Flow podcast. My name is Ebb and Flow on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. And yeah, please check it out. I talk about a lot of things that are just interesting me in the moment. And I don't prepare for my episodes at all. So it's just me being as raw as I can with the topic that I'm interested in.
Perfect. Well, again, man, thanks. And hopefully we'll either see you in the Patreon group later or maybe later on this week.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
man.
Have a good night.
Take care.
See you, man.
That was a dope way to kick off the call-in show.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic way. Yeah.
Appreciate Ben stopping by and having that chat with us. We do have to just continue on because we have other people in the queue.
We got a couple of people.
Fucking great day.
there.
So if anybody would like to join us again, dualisticunity.com/live. We are going to be joined by our new Director of Technological Development for Dualistic Unity, Jazz. Jazz, who has been running our
I
Discord
will be
for
back.
quite some time. Oh, bam. Jazz will be back.
All right.
Until then, we are just going to filibuster and just wait some,
Yeah.
you know,
I was
spend some
thinking about
time here.
Yeah,
Oh, my
the seed oil stuff and just how much like with any of those things.
Hello.
Hey, Jazz, what's up?
Not fast enough, man.
Not much, just
You just
gotta
told me
get
how
it going
to
quick,
talk about it.
quick,
It's all
quick.
good.
You know, bam, bam, bam. We're done filibustering. It's time to go, boy, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. What
How you
is
doing?
that?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm you know, having a lot is happening. I was just coming from the watch party. We're hosting a watch party on the Discord. I've always enjoyed having these types of watch parties for the call-in shows because it's always fun seeing people come on. And hell yeah, Ben, thanks for kicking us off today. And I'm looking forward to seeing who else is coming on as well as another person on the queue. That's awesome.
Could be.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm looking forward to it regardless. It's gonna be interesting. But yeah, I've been processing a lot lately. It's been a lot coming up, and you know, it's sharing my travels through the cycles. Hello.
We appreciate it. We appreciate the chronicle of your journey.
What does chronicle mean?
Chronicle, it's kind of like a documentation of what
Ooh,
it is. It's very epic and old school, you know.
I
like
love that word. Yeah.
a saga.
Chronicle.
Exactly. You need
Chronicle
a
of
troubadour
journey.
to follow you along with a lute.
That's right.
But here goes the chronicle. Yeah, it's interesting to see how easy it can be to get caught up in a cycle. First of all, A. And B, it's interesting how it can come up also in contexts that you're not spending as much time in, because I haven't been spending as much time in like work related stuff. And so it's like, oh yeah, this goes everywhere. Like self-concept, self-idea, or like this thing that you create to satisfy some thing, some condition on life can penetrate everything. It's like always at the back somewhere, but it's like when you go through different experiences, when you're like going out driving or putting yourself in the water when you don't know if you can drown or not, or if you're going into work related stuff, it's bringing up a lot of different things, I think, in terms of where identity is derived, in terms of where self-worth is derived, where certainty is derived about who you are, where you're going, who you're with, and who you're without as well. It's yeah, it's I don't know. I posted some stuff on LinkedIn. I was like very excited, you know.
The new title description. Fuck yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, it's what it is. I don't know. I don't know what the hell's happening, but I did like the title. The title is fun, and admittedly, the title came from like a whole like thing unpacking in my head about like potential unpacking. So that's where the title came from. I don't know. Can we share it? Can I say it?
What the title of your we already did. You're the director of technological development. Like we put that in right as you entered the room.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
They're well aware. They're well aware. Got a director.
Like hear ye, you know.
Wait. I have a whole thing for this then.
Welcome to your coronation call.
Thank you. We talked about a ring a while ago, and you know, I was eating a Kinder Egg this one time, and this ring popped up, the ring to rule them all.
Yes.
Hey.
Nice.
Wow.
I
That
was
was
just like, that's really
yeah.
funny. I have to go to them. So y'all may kiss the ring.
That's right.
That's
Technological
right, bitches.
god coming in. I do appreciate the other offer of a title for director of magic, but sadly we decided that title is not quite ready yet. The magic wing of Dualistic Unity is still in development. So
Yeah.
That will remain classified for a little bit longer.
right, you got to come to the 9-day retreats for that if you want to.
Need at
Oh,
least
Lord.
3 under your belt.
Yeah.
Minimum requirement. Earn your
magic 3,
stripes,
see,
as
you
they
know.
say, in the gazebo. Yeah.
The gazebo was a good time. The gazebo was a wild time. Yeah, no, that's fair. At one point, perhaps it shall open up, but at the moment, it's really been about just not waiting for anything. Because it's interesting because like after I came back from Denver, I'm noticing a huge. It feels like I'm like being skinned, honestly. Like the description that was coming that was most appropriate in terms of how it feels is like that imagery that I think it was the lizard that you were talking about, Ray, that was like bumping its head into the wall as it's like shedding layers. That's honestly how it feels. It's like I'm going through experiences that I've gone through before, but with a whole new perspective on it. And so it's like every moment is an opportunity to choose a different direction. And one that I'm noticing, that I have been noticing since I got back from Denver, is the weight to something. Like, because I'm like, you know, doing all of these things like driving lessons and all of these lessons and scheduling a lot of things in my day. And so there are a lot of things that I'm doing, but then it's like, what about the parts in between? That's where life is also happening, can also happen, but often doesn't seem to, because I think that there has been habitual cycles of spending time thinking about myself or worrying about what I need to be doing, or I don't know. This couch is is my go-to place for sitting down and wondering what the fuck is happening. And it's been honestly it's played a role for sure, but now it's like, okay, let's just do things. Like we don't have to wait for the next thing. I don't even know what the next thing is. Like honestly, I really don't. The next thing seems to change based on who the fuck I am, and who I am also changes every moment. So
Woo!
yeah, it's a roller coaster.
Welcome to living.
Like, and assume, oh my god.
Or
Assuming-
death.
Assuming we can know what's next.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Or that we want to,
yeah.
right? Because think about it,
We
like we keep
should.
looking forward going, you know, I want it to be this, right? But we discount everything that we could learn between here and there,
Mhm.
right? So how do we know we continue to want it to be that and to just ignore that, which is often what we do, right? We just don't change. Like we just hold on to that tunnel
Yeah.
vision, right? And then we get there and we're still not fucking happy, you know, because now we got there and we have all now the regret of ignoring all the shit that we passed to get here, right? And so it's just so very interesting. Whereas the alternative is to admit you don't know. You can choose a direction with some vague idea, but to resist it changing is coming from a place of need. It's what causes conflict and resistance with everything. Right? Like we don't know where the future goes. And that's, I guess, admitting that is where we learn to adapt to everything as it happens. And that's when our future becomes something that is the result of making the most of what happens rather than trying to get to some idea.
Because the idea is stagnant, and it's a trap, and you don't have to live up to this idea. I don't have to live up to this idea. Oh god. Yeah, there's so much potential in the moment. There's so many different directions and so many different directions in the directions, and there's just like ah!
I know that sound.
It's like, no, there's one that's gonna do it. Like waiting for that other shoe to drop. Like there's got to be something else. It can't be this. It can't just be that base, like that simple that it's this. And Jazz, like with the shedding skin and stuff, like going through, I've been feeling that, like going through different things that you focus on that kind of take you from the simplicity of it's like, no, just pay attention, right? And just like this is it right now. Like you don't know what's going to be next at all, or how you're doing, or any of it.
Mhm.
Like it's just, yeah, it's just this. And it's like, yeah, cliche, but you know, it is.
And you can either jump to conclusions, which I like that imagery of like what the conclusion is the weight, the assumption is the weight, and so I have to jump. Like it's hard to walk, it's hard to run with those heavy weights, but I can jump. I can make labor jumps, or I can feel like I'm flying with faith and no assumption. But it's very hard to fly with the weight of the assumption that I'm carrying.
Because you think there's something to get out of it, and there isn't. It's just life.
Yeah, in which case,
Just
which
not
means
even a just.
doing everything. This is why I like expression, right? Like I love expression. This is why, you know, if I'm not singing or humming or doing something like that, I'm digging into some kind of a project for myself. You know, not necessarily to learn something, but because I want to fuck around. You know, like that's the whole thing. So that said, though, I'm looking forward to what we have going with the future of Dualistic Unity and the website and possible other technological developments. So I'm stoked. I was really glad that you chose technological versus technical, because immediately I'm like, are we going to build robots that grow weed?
That's a great yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
maybe. Who the fuck knows?
I can see it now. But Jazz, thank you for everything. And thank you for coming on to today's episode. But specifically, I don't know if you caught yesterday's Raw, but we gave you a huge shout out because
I did. I watched it. Yeah. I
So-
appreciate that as well. And I appreciate having this opportunity, honestly, because yeah, it's exciting. It's cool. It's interesting. It's scary. It's all of it. And I am pumped for it. So, whoop. And I'm also pumped for the next caller. So let's get him in here.
Hell yeah.
I love it.
All right.
Jazz.
We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Jazz.
Get the fuck out.
See you, man.
Bye.
Exit stage right.
All right. We have another guest. We're just gonna keep moving along here as we've got a bit of a queue. This guest is Tobias, and he would like to discuss shifting perspective views on your own body, the power of now and its limitations. So this should be an interesting conversation.
All right.
Let's let them into the room and keep this party rolling. This is a lot of fun.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody who's joining us currently. If you're in the watch party or on YouTube or Twitch or any of those things, thanks. And if you can, drop a comment. Say hi.
It's appreciated. Are there any
Tobias, how are you, sir?
bias? Hello.
Oh, his audio is connecting.
Hello.
Give it a quick moment.
Can you hear me?
We can. Hello.
How you
Can you
doing?
see me?
We can see you.
Indeed as well.
We can.
You
see you,
can? Oh, okay.
or at least the image of you.
Ah, there we are. Oh, the delay is crazy.
I think your audio is going through on.
Okay, I just gotta turn off that delay. Yeah, so I think we've talked a few times before. We have. I just wanted to say hello again. It's been a while.
It has. It's good to see you
And
again.
yeah, it's good to see you. I've just been kind of busy.
I heard about
And yeah, and I caught the live stream from Andrew on Insta, and I was writing a few comments, but I guess it went on notice, but that's fine.
It's hard to
Um,
track it, you know.
Yeah, we have a.
Yeah, no,
few.
I don't care. It's irrelevant. So I wrote down some of the things I wanted to ask. So Andrew, I know you read The Power of Now, and I also have it sitting in front of me, and I read it like around 2 years ago.
I've also read it.
And
Read it as well, yeah.
nice. And I recently saw a video basically talking about how, so the power of now, basically it what I got from it was let life flow, you know. And I feel like I feel like here's what I wrote. So it teaches you to let go, let life flow, but I disagree with that. I think it is possible to go against the flow and force whatever you want in life. Maybe life is telling you to do something, but you can, with enough will, force that thing to go into the direction you want. And so, yeah, I just wanted to get your perspective on that.
I think first of all, pushing for that thing that you want, it doesn't guarantee the next thing.
No,
It's like how much is that experience? How much is your experience along the way towards getting the thing that you want being sacrificed for some thing that's entirely uncertain? You know, that experience, what, a moment, a situation, some place that you're getting. It's like, how much of my experience right now am I sacrificing based on trying to get there and prioritizing this seeming guarantee that getting what I want is the best barometer for something that means something about me, or always the best direction. Like, it's only ever gotten me to wanting more things, as opposed to being cool with, you know, where I'm at. There's the quote that I like bringing up. I think maybe I heard it from one of you at some point, but like, who has more, the man who has everything or the man who wants nothing? And so I like that.
I yeah, see what you're saying, but I'm not saying that I personally am not like trying to force anything. I'm just looking at this as a perspective. I think I'm not saying I would look at it as I lack this and I need this and I need to pursue this, because also it's completely unknown where that direction will take me as well. So it's completely irrelevant also if I force this thing to happen or if I let it go and let life flow, right? So, and I think if you truly do want something, it is also important to know that you can go get it with, even if life is telling you to not pursue this, or it's giving you signs not to, you can still say, no, I want to go get this and I will. And I think that's an important thing to remember, you know?
Yeah, but it's also a good consideration is that, you'd be perfectly fine if you never got the things that you wanted.
Mhm.
Right? Like that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because I don't want, or I remember feeling like pursuing my wants and desires with that amount of veracity it felt like running into a brick wall trying to break the wall.
But
Right?
your experience isn't indicative of everybody else's experience if they went through that. Right.
No, but you're talking about like forcing, like you
No,
like
I'm not saying forcing. I'm saying I wouldn't say forcing. I would say going against what I guess I don't know. I
to go against. How would you define force then?
I guess not go against either. I guess I wish I had like a example to give, but I can't think of one at the moment. But it doesn't. That's just I guess just
What about
having what's that?
what about influence, right?
Mm,
Instead of forcing something, I think we have a great capacity to influence results, but not necessarily be able to force them, because to force them for me implies the connotation of control. I can
mm.
control this and force a specific result. And I don't think we have the capacity to force results, but I think we could and do influence results.
I think you can force certain results with enough dedication. I
But at
think
what
it is
cost?
possible.
At what
Yeah,
cost?
sure. I'm not saying that there is no cost, of course. There's a cost for everything.
If the end result is ultimately, fulfilling your life, then the
Hmm.
cost is not feeling that fulfillment. Like forcing your way to get there is ultimately not feeling in alignment with anything, because you're still satisfying some need. You're still satisfying some trajectory rather than any sense of presence, which removes the sense of fulfillment, which
Hmm.
removes the sense of attention, where the experience itself is experienced as something that's either freedom or oppression, right? Freedom or
Hmm.
doubt, as it
No.
were. So I would think that there's always that cost, but I would say that, and again, like it comes down to attention. It's just like anything else. Like when we're trying to control something, we can't. But what we can do is give it as much attention as possible. We can't ever control all the mitigating factors or all the uncertainties or all the unknowns, all the things
Of
that
course.
are even unknown unknowns. But
Hmm.
as they come in, we can make the most out of what's happening. If everything were to suddenly just go to shit, that doesn't mean that you can't pick up the pieces and do something with that.
No.
But it's that
No.
need for things to not go to shit. It's that need for things to end up in a certain way that ends up,
Hmm.
limiting our ability to adapt, I would think, and
No.
actually takes away from the joy of expression and creativity and moving forward, which I think is the point, right? That's where we're
Hmm.
ultimately trying to get to, is an enjoyment of our moment to moment existence.
No. No. I just thought it was an interesting perspective, and I think it is more it's more freeing to also have the option to do that if you do wish, because
And
it is also self-limiting to say, no, I can't get this, I should, yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say was, I've been like while showering, I found it really interesting. I sometimes just view my own body as an inanimate object and just kind of let go of the attachment and the identity I have with myself.
Right.
And then I focus on my awareness, and then I then transition to my appreciation for my experience through my body, which I
That's
find is very, very interesting.
that
Yeah.
sounds like a fun mental
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like a balance. It's kind of like the non-duality,
Mm.
like teacher crowd can very much kind of mitigate or discount that experience of themselves, like, and maybe throw the body out with it and just focus on like being energy awareness, but it's fully discounting a part of that experience too.
Mm.
Not saying that, you said that you were doing that. It sounds like there's, balance there for sure, but like, because it's both, it's very much, everything going on, but also we each have influence here, which is dope, which is really cool.
Right.
And I think
No.
the force and control real quick, it like looking at where the priority is it like, am I trying to force this for some idea, feeling good about that, or am I prioritizing my experience, along the way, and being honest about that? Like, no one can answer those things for you, but it does take degrees of self-honesty, and usually there's feelings there, especially if you're assuming that you're trying to force something. It's like that's can be indicative too, that maybe there is ulterior motives.
No.
That's all.
The Zoom, the Discord conversation, I didn't hear a single thing there, but sorry.
Yeah,
I
no
couldn't
worries.
get it to turn off.
We appreciate you stopping in and spending some time with us, and hopefully we'll chat with you in the group after this, or Wednesday. We've got the free group at 6 p.m. Eastern, so if you want to jump in there, well, we can continue the
Okay,
conversation.
I'm not subscribed to the Patreon anymore. Can I subscribe quickly and then join?
Yeah, for sure,
Or-
absolutely. Or
okay.
tomorrow is the free one, so you don't have to
Yeah.
be a Patreon member.
Okay. Is it a tier 1?
We have a
Right.
tier 1 tomorrow after the free one. There's
Okay.
a free one at 6 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to seeing you, and again, thank you so much for being here.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you, Tobias.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.
This has been a fantastic episode thus far.
Look at that.
And that's the thing, is I understand the sentiment there. I really do. It's
Mhm.
like, but surely a little control's okay. Like, we have the capacity. I mean, why he said it there. It's self-limiting to think that I can't do this.
Right.
Right. It's also self-limiting to think that you need to do this. Right. Like, that comes from a place of lack. And nobody's saying that you can't, but do you need it? Do you need it? And if you need it, why do you need it? And that's really the big concern. Like, that's where the trade is. But again, I would say that, it's kind of like a song by Lucifer, the Humbling River, right? I've country crown and throne. I've climbed all these fucking mountains. I've done all this shit, and still I can't cross that fucking river. And that's what comes from just throwing yourself in, doing the things that he was just saying. Like, we can do these, we can pursue these things. And yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And you can even achieve those fucking things if you want to push hard enough and sacrifice enough and really just unrelentingly go after it. You can achieve all of those things. And when you get there, you're still going to be left with your experience with you here now.
Yeah.
Now you'll no longer have the carrot to chase, though, to distract you from the experience that you're having right now.
Yeah.
So you'll come up with another carrot. And it's not that you can't do it. It's that it's not going to give you what you want. It won't. But there's a part of us that needs to do that enough times to finally just go, fine. Right. But even then, it's like, brain's like, well, maybe a little, maybe just a
I've
little
got
bit.
a juicy
I've
new
got-
carrot.
Right,
for you.
absolutely. And I've got a system, see.
White plate.
That's right. Guaranteed.
Garnish.
Guaranteed. For sure. Absolutely.
It's blowing off in the distance. One day, just tripping, falling, stumbling as you go.
Yeah,
Oh,
just like, no, you don't have to, but it's just, it did sound like he was saying, the option's there. Why wouldn't I take it? And it's like, yeah, it is there. It's
Absolutely.
always gonna be there, but
Absolutely.
you've been taking it. How's that going for you?
Exactly.
You know?
Right? But that's the thing, like, it depends on whether I'm looking at it, because I can tell myself it's going just fine as I continue to
Yeah.
need to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it really just comes down to a point where you realize you've been running in circles. You realize you've been chasing your tail, and you get fucking tired. You just get tired, and that all has to happen in its own time.
Yeah.
Because then what you're left with, instead of a trajectory towards certainty and happiness and the promised land and all of that, is where you are now, and the decision of whether or not to just jump in and be yourself, or form a strategy and a plan based on assumptions and the assumptions that you make about yourself. So it's always that choice. And on that note, we have another person in the queue. I want to remind everybody watching, if you'd like to join, dualisticunity.com/live, and you can join the queue and be on the episode for up to 10 minutes. But for the time being, we have Levi in the queue. And if anybody doesn't know, Levi actually offers coaching, not coaching, but I guess one-on-one chats. That's a better way to put it. If you're just looking to go through shit and self-reflect in a way where it's really on you and there's just the space for you to do that with somebody who's been doing the very same thing for a good period of time now, Levi is definitely at your disposal. Go to dualisticunity.com/Levi, and it will take you to his offerings for, I believe it's a 25 and a 50-minute session over Zoom. You can shoot the shit. And of course, it gives Levi an excellent opportunity to share all of the shit that he shares with us regularly, not just on call-in shows like this, but also on our group Zooms. And so I'm going to shut the hell up and just let Levi into the room now. But to everybody who's called in so far, thank you so much for being here. Levi, it is good to see you, man.
Levi, hello. Welcome to the party.
Hey, Levi.
Oh, there we are. Hello.
Black face.
Hello, hello.
I love it.
Levi.
Oh, nice to see you guys.
Likewise, man. Likewise.
man.
I appreciated that you wrote you'd like to discuss jumping in. It was perfect timing. So let's jump in.
Yeah, exactly. But just before that, like before you started talking about like the one-on-ones and stuff, you guys were just summing up my whole fucking life, like before like 3 years ago. It was like, it's just one struggle after another. I knew what I needed to get and I went for it. Like it was the only thing, like everything else was sacrificed. And I got there, you know, I got to those places, but there was always a new place I needed to get because it didn't work. It's just crazy. And I still like feel like there's parts of me that kind of always wants to get somewhere, but it's just nice to remind myself of kind of all those times where I've achieved something and there's nothing there. There is no carrot, you know. There's maybe for a little bit, you know, but it quickly becomes a new one further ahead. So yeah, I just wanted to say that before jumping into the jumping in topic. So
We appreciate it, man. Because that's
Yeah.
it. You just go through it enough where you realize like it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. But and that's compulsive gambling of just doubling down, chasing your losses, right? Because fuck, I've spent all this time devoted to control, and then the end result, if I give up now, was all wasted time.
Mm. Yeah. I just actually someone sent me yesterday a video from this Norwegian artist kind of guy who basically has made a video where it's called the escalator just in Norwegian, and the escalator is going down, you know, and everyone wants to get to the top, and it's just you're following this one guy who's kind of starting to question things, you know, and he kind of goes with these people towards the top and he's kind of trying to tell them, are you sure about this, you know, it seems incredibly hard, and where is the top anyway, you know, it's like and it's just so funny. And then he starts to go down. He's like, "Ooh, this is really comfortable." And then all the people is coming past him, you know, on the way up, and everyone is, and he starts to question it again, you know, and it's like, "Fuck, maybe I should go back up," you know. And then he does, and he finds some new people to join on the way to the top. And anyway, it's a really cool video. Oh yes.
I wonder if it's almost like this idea at the top that everyone's getting to, and then it's just like nothing's there, and then at the bottom is actually where everything is, and everyone, you know, is just running, trying to distract from it. Very, very symbolic. Very symbolic.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a dope video.
Yeah.
That was more or less what I want to say about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, the jumping in thing I wanted to talk about, because it's so easy to kind of doubt my own place in a situation often. At least I have a tendency to do that. And it's just, for example, yesterday, I got like an invite to go like jam in the forest with like instruments and stuff like that. And it's like, that's a fucking cool thing, you know? And I'm like, immediately like, wow, I want to do this, you know? And then I don't know music, you know, I've always had a story that I don't have a rhythm, I don't have a voice, I don't have anything, you know, and all these things. And I'm like, I know that like the two people who were going, they were like basically musicians, right? And it's like, it's so easy to doubt yourself. And it's like, but it's like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna say now, but it's like I went, you know, to this thing because I'm like, fuck all those thoughts. It doesn't matter. Like if I sit there and just listen to the music and, you know, just enjoy the view and I'm in the woods and everything, like who cares? And like, you know, and it's just, and then I get up there and it's like, of course it fits with me somehow, like with something, you know, it's like, you know, I'm doing like the rhythm mag a little bit. I'm doing like the drum, you know, and I'm feeling the rhythm. And it's like I'm using my voice. I'm doing some freestyle singing, you know, and it's like, and it's just, oh man, it's like, oh, all those things that I've kind of passed by because of those thoughts in my life. It's probably like a million things, you know, that I've just thought that, you know, I don't think I should be there, or I'm not good enough to do that thing, or you know, it's just fear.
Yeah.
It's just fear, and it's not true. Like it's just not true. Yeah.
And in response to that fear, usually we'll try to use false certainty, right? Like we'll have an ideal situation. If we're going to go, it's going to go like this, and everybody's going to look at me this way, and this is what, you know, this is how it's going to go. And then all of a sudden there's the fear, because if it can go that way, then it can also not go that way. And so we just don't bother. There's too much risk, right? We just don't bother, or we go into it and we're completely blind to everybody around us because we're trying to get that end result instead of just going and then feeling it out moment by moment, which is what we were talking about with Tobias just before this, right? Like it's not that you can't move forward or even have a direction, it's that you don't know. You don't know, so you can't count on an end result. But that doesn't mean you can't get the most out of everything without needing to know that end result.
Mm.
Yeah. It's fascinating, like just realizing how few people are keeping tabs on us individually, like the tabs I keep for myself. So many there all the time. And like that keeps me from all those experiences, from jumping in. You know, it's like, well, all of these things could play out in this way. And like there's no one watching me in the way that I watch me. Like no one's keeping track, no one's keeping tabs. It's like that sensitivity to yourself almost, and like choosing one or the other based on some sort of guarantee. It's like you can have sensitivity to that or sensitivity to reality, you know, and it's kind of a trade. It's like to let yourself go feels like this big drastic thing, but really it's just letting go of keeping tabs on yourself so much, or like this illusion that you could know how you're doing, or like how something's even gonna go.
Mm. Yeah, I'm catching myself a lot lately, like kind of going into this how am I doing kind of thing. It just keeps coming back, but it's like even that doesn't matter. It's just as you guys keep saying, it's just keep going, you know. I'm like hearing it, and it's just sometimes I get a little bit caught up in it, but as soon as I remember, it's just, oh, keep going, you know. It's just, it's wonderful. It's really that simple, and it's just yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how the thing that I've run away from my whole life is actually the thing that is the answer to all of my problems. Like all of the things I've ever had an issue with came from a sense of lack that I just don't feel when I'm not thinking about something I need to do in order to be more. Like when I'm not invested in that fucking trajectory to mortem, as it were, like when I'm not trying to become something else where things will be better, things stop sucking. And it's just that. It's just super counterintuitive. We're like, what? So I'm just gonna like accept my life as it is? Like, yeah, and then do something with it, right? But as long as you're trying to make it something else, you're not even in it. How much impact do you think you're going to have? And I don't mean on your physical circumstances. I mean on your state of mind. Because when you say like my life, do you really mean just how much money you make and where you live? Or do you mean how much you're getting out of each and every moment of your life? Because that's a whole other way to look at what you mean by your life.
Mm.
Right, your life is your experience, and that becomes a lot more of a priority over your perception. And so it feels like at some point we were given this brick of gold, and we're prioritizing like, oh, I have to, you know, I have to protect it. Someone might steal it. You know, we're worrying that someone's gonna take it, and we're obsessing about this fucking brick. And then one day it drops on the floor, and a little bit of the gold paint chips off. And it's not a pure gold brick. It was just a regular brick painted gold. But I assumed that it was so valuable, and I'm carrying this weight, prioritizing and thinking that it's so important, and then it chips, and I realize I've been carrying an assumption. And instead of being upset of all the quote unquote wasted time carrying that brick, now I have a depth of appreciation for, you know, a weightless step.
And then everyone who is carrying bricks too, appreciation for the reasons why we do, that sense of safety. As long as I hold on to it and look at it, I'll be okay. Setting it down.
Yeah. Why it doesn't make any sense to judge anybody who's still going through it, because you're just like, I get why.
Yeah.
You know, like I understand why you want that thing. I get, you know, why you need that end result. I understand where it comes from. Sucks. Sucks. All of it. You know, there's no judgment. That doesn't mean what I'm saying isn't true. Right? Like that's kind of the whole point. It's like I'm relating. I'm just not validating. You know, I'm relating to where you are, but I've done that enough to know it's just a brick wall. You know, you're just gonna end up hitting a brick wall just as long as you're trying to control. But when you just let go, you flow with and as the river, which does not imply that you're not doing anything. Because I know somebody had left a comment. I think it's damaging for people to be told to just let things flow. But you're assuming letting things flow in that comment, anyway, not you specifically, Levi, that letting things flow is almost apathy. It's just letting things happen in a certain sort of nonchalant, non-participatory way.
Kind of way.
Absolutely. Whereas
Negligent.
letting things flow is being part of things as they happen, as opposed to being rigid and structured on a trajectory into a future that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And isn't going to solve your problems, because your problems stem from your inability to align with reality as it happens.
To be in sync with the flow.
Yeah. And like actions you're taking now are so often based on assumptions just about the future, like all future assumptions. So many of the fears that pop up are assumptions, very much so about, oh, if this plays out in this way, like this, I'm gonna feel this way or that way, and like all these guarantees. And when that's not, like the false certainty isn't so much of a guarantee, then those actions, there's like so much more freedom, like so much more is out there. Like the unfamiliar things are seen as, I don't know, more exciting than like frightening in a sense, but also frightening too from perspective. But it doesn't mean that that's, you know, that's got to stop you.
Yeah.
Just because it seems frightening. Levi.
That's it, man.
See you, man.
Yeah, this has been
As
fun.
always.
Appreciate you jumping on here. As always, we're going to continue the conversation later. I don't know if you're going to be on there, as I know you are on the other side.
It's pretty late, so we'll see if I feel awake or not.
Oh,
So,
fuck, man.
but anyway, thanks for the chat, and
Thank you.
see you guys.
Absolutely, man.
Talk to you
Take
soon.
care. This has been a dope episode.
It
I've been
has.
having a lot of fun, for sure. We don't currently have anyone in the queue, so I'm going to go to our community Discord, wherein somebody has asked a question in the Ask a Question section.
Oh, thank you.
Nice.
Keep the questions
All
coming,
right.
please.
That shit.
What are your thoughts on pure awareness? And can there even be any thoughts on pure awareness?
I think thoughts are always gonna cloud that pure awareness, but not, I mean, even that, it's like, it's kind of both like a both and neither, because assuming that there shouldn't be thoughts, it's kind of the track that Eckhart Tolle was gotten on, like the lack of thoughts is like success. I'm like present for 7 minutes or
Mhm.
whatever he says. So I think it's a balance, but yeah, I think a lot of the time the focus on them can very much cloud. Now I'm forgetting what the exact question was.
Thoughts on pure awareness, and can there even be any thoughts on pure awareness? Which is kind of a fun question.
Well, those were some
Thoughts on pure awareness.
on that.
Right, I was like,
Fair
there can
enough,
definitely be
fair enough.
thoughts on anything, whether or not those thoughts are accurate is debatable. No, just
Yeah.
kidding. But yeah, we can explore any topic. We can, but I guess that would be that's where my mind went, is like, what kind of, like, do there have to be specific thoughts in particular about pure awareness? Because just thoughts, we're showing that there can be, and pure awareness kind of feels like just maybe another way to describe existence or to label existence. Is that pure awareness? But that's how my mind translated those two words.
Yeah, very much. And that's fair. I mean, when it comes to thoughts on pure awareness on my side, I would say I don't even know what you mean by pure awareness. I mean, what awareness is not pure, regardless of how distracted it is. And if you mean by, an undistracted awareness, I would say that there is no way for me to answer that, because to answer that, it would assume that awareness on any level whatsoever is individual, that my awareness is pure or impure, separate from everybody else. And there is no such thing. So if there is just awareness, period, then even the parts of awareness that are distracted are pure awareness, reflecting an aspect or a potential experience of awareness. So I don't think that I think it's a concept that kind of goes along with like source and God and all that shit. I think that it's just another ideal, whereas it takes you farther away from the reality rather than closer to. I think that would be the thought there. We had a follow-up to what we were talking about in terms of flow. I mean that assuming that where life is taking me is where I should go. And that's what I was saying. That's exactly what I was saying in terms of you view going with the flow is kind of apathetic. Like, oh, it's just happening to me. Life has never been directing you anywhere. And I say this with all sincerity and empathy. The fact is that it sounds like you're just playing victim. Like you haven't been making choices up until now. You are where you are as a result of the choices that you've made up until now. You've been directing the flow the whole time. What you've never had is control. What you've never had is control. And so now you're just trying to do it again, but now you've got like the tried and true way. You're like, no, this one's going to solve it. But you've been doing that your whole life. You've been doing that ever since you started to try and fit in as a kid. You've been doing that ever since you started to learn how to follow the rules as a kid, your choice to go to high school, your choice to get a job, your choice to do. These are all your choices. At any point, you could have run away. At any point, you could have decided to be a different person, react to different things. Like you are where you've directed the flow. You just don't have control of that. You make it sound as though life is happening to you rather than life is happening as you.
Even the mention of like being in the flow or going against the flow or going with the flow, like a lot of that, even like getting back into the flow, kind of similar to that pure awareness, like creates a journey instead of seeing like, oh, it's not even going against the flow. It's like you're still with the flow of things. It's not that there is like so much of that illusion is that there's you doing, going one direction or another, but you can recognize like whether you are or aren't kind of based on your experience and like how you're feeling and how many coping mechanisms you have for how you feel, not even realizing that, oh, there's a lot of coping mechanisms there. And as those start to get looked at and realize, oh, this is in response to something. Oh, this is in response to something. You get more and more sensitive to how much push you had away from being where you're at, trying to make assumptions, and then assuming this journey that you can just, keep on running towards, like keep on running after that carrot, getting somewhere else.
Right. It feels almost like I'm I'm a one-man crew on a ship, on a sailboat, and instead of, you know, paying attention to the wind and the sea and the sky and all those contributing factors that are influencing the direction of the ship, I'm in the captain's quarters with my captain hat, looking out the window, predicting how I'm going to control where the ship's going to go. And it's like I could just forget that there is any control and just go out and adjust the sails, not try to force the ship to go in any direction, because time and time again I've seen that just didn't work.
Well said. We do have another question from the community Discord. So thank you to the person who just dropped that.
Yes.
And again, if anybody else would like us to answer your questions, feel free to jump in there and ask it. Do you think you have to make assumptions throughout life to some capacity? For my answer, I would say I assume so. And the reason I assume so is because frankly, that's all I've known. That's all I've known my whole life is my brain doing its best to kind of make a guess based on what it's taken in so far. And so all I've ever known are assumptions until I've questioned those assumptions, and then they've become something else. I think what changes over time is that it doesn't become an assumption. Is that instead of you going, yep, I absolutely know, you just stop doing that, right? Because you realize how often that has a consequence, how often that has a conflict. But I think that you are going to make assumptions until you get to that point. Right. I think that is the process of learning. Now, does that mean that's the only way to live? Will there eventually possibly be another, era of humanity where we don't do that? I don't know. I think that when I look at animals in nature, especially, I don't see any of that, but how would I know? Right. I assume that the reason that we judge animals to be different is because they are so often in the world of quote unquote instinct, which very much is the world of not second guessing, right? It's very much the world of not making assumptions, of just running or fighting or freezing or whatever your response to now might be. And so I almost think that this capacity to make assumptions or even to make a guess is very much a part of the human experience. Right. But I think it's just that we tend to fall back on the assumptions for the certainty, and there isn't a common dialogue about the cost of doing so. And despite the fact that all of our science, all of our advancements, all of our developments come from assumptions that have been questioned historically. Right. So it's pretty obvious that questioning our assumptions leads to greater insight. It's just that it's not something that we talk about.
Right. And maybe our instincts are guesses that are based on sensitivity, and our assumptions are guesses that are based on the concept of us.
And that trade, it's like, is it what I've typically done in the past, or is it based on new information, new experiences, based on sensitivity
Yeah.
to what I'm doing right now? And that is a total shift in that priority. That being able to have that influence, so that it can't be, it doesn't necessarily, you're not using you as that dictator of like a maintenance almost.
Right, because the assumption feels like it's a guess based on the idea of you, because it's you're assuming you know what's best, you're assuming you know what's happening, whether it's good, bad, not meeting a standard, meeting the standard, whether you're forcing it or letting things flow, you're assuming that you know. And that's based on you being the knower. But instincts could just be real-time guesses based on sensitivity, and just taking things in and making the guess, because the animals are making their choices with no guarantee for where that choice is going to go. So it feels like that is a guess, but it's just a guess that's not based on an idea. It's a guess based on the sensitivity to everything that's happening in that moment.
Which is what we still have the capacity to do. That's exactly what we're talking about, right? Except that we have almost a broader spectrum of potentials. It's not just that we see how many different directions the fish that we're hunting can go. We can also see how many different directions the day can go based on whether or not we catch that fucking fish. right? How many different ways we might perceive our own life, ourself, the villagers might perceive us. All of a sudden, our brain's just creating a whole fucking potential stories.
Mhm.
And I think that was the advancement in the frontal cortex, right? It was just that ability to go further down the chain of potentials rather than just dealing with the immediate. But we lost ourselves in that.
Well, and trying to control that journey, like how spread is that desire to control, so much so that, you know, with religions go until the end of our life, this assumption that it's like, you know, 70 to 90, 100-year period,
Mhm.
that like I'm going to do certain things to get some guarantee, like way down the road, and like being able to do things and prolong that, almost like prolong that state of that guarantee of uncertainty the whole time, like playing this game, like assuming there's control and that there's going to be some direction, some path, some want that you finally follow or thing that you finally accomplish that's going to get you here, you know, the whole time. And so it's not to say like any of the goals or the journey stuff is wrong. It's a component of it. It's just like, does it mean something about you or not? And that's, you know, that's a trade. That's something that only you can look at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fair. There is a quick follow-up here. So after you question an assumption, can you not make that assumption anymore? Of course you can. Like your glasses help you see, so you're not making an assumption that it will do that again when you put them on in the morning. So I can only speak for myself here. And this goes back to what I was saying is you don't have to make an assumption. Like you can just live in a world of uncertainty. So you're saying like, aren't you making an assumption your glasses are going to work again tomorrow morning? I don't, not personally, you know, and the reason I say that is because I'm not even sure my glasses work. And what do I mean by work? Which is another question, right? Another assumption, like they're helping me see, right? But they may also be making my eyes weaker by virtue of me just not using them without the glasses. So is that working? Right? Not only that, tomorrow morning I may wake up blind or a miracle could happen. None of which I'm really willing to discount,
Right.
I guess is what I'm saying, because I don't know enough about what is possible potentially. And so for me, it's not an assumption. I wake up in the morning, I put the glasses on, cool, they're still doing their thing, but I don't have to be counting on it. Do you know what I mean? Like if I wake up, I'm like, oh, they're not working. They've abandoned me. Like if that was the case, I would never go to an eye doctor and get a new prescription, right? I would never be willing to say maybe they're not doing what I thought they were doing, right? I would feel as if I was a failure every time I had to get a new prescription because I wasn't living up to the glasses.
weren't appreciating them.
Right?
They were
Absolutely. I mean, they're not working anymore. God damn it.
I didn't create a pedestal to place them on at the end of every day with lights to look upon them.
backlit
The holy.
and everything. Yeah. But that sense of like assuming that something's gonna work or not, it's not so much about like assuming that you're gonna do something or not, or like that something's gonna happen, but that sense of control, like it's gonna mean something, like that additional thing. It's like you can do things, absolutely, and there's a likelihood that certain things will happen, but this extended like idea that we can guarantee far down the road that something's going to happen or play out in a certain way, and like just kind of bringing that sense of needing, you know, to control something way down the road back to just where you're at and how close to here, like not needing to guarantee something because you're not getting in the way of yourself right now, creating, you know, a difficult experience for yourself based on how far down the fucking path you're looking, or how much you're trying to guarantee, or how much you're trying to keep under control, or keep distracting yourself from, and then trying to do all different sorts of things in response to that, instead of just letting those chips fall. It's like, yeah, it's always going to be that question mark. I don't know what the best next step is, but yeah, take in what's available and what's there and do something with that.
Have you guys heard the expression, don't make assumptions because you make an ass out of you and me because you can because ass, you and me are all in the word assume.
Yeah.
And I love that expression. I love that little saying because it's so true when you treat the assumption like an absolute point you can settle on. It's like assumptions loosen their grip when you're like, oh, I can assume, but I'm not entirely sure.
That's it.
This will work. That's it. And it immediately the white knuckle grip is slightly less white. The knuckles feel tingling again.
But that's
you
like you're
know?
willing, there's sensitivity, like there all of a sudden there's wiggle room, there's a
Mhm.
willingness to be reasonable. And I think that that's something that we very much discount is how much of this just really just comes down to being reasonable, as opposed to being fucking obsessed and fanatical about things, right? Like there's that whole thing about, any silver bullet. You really want to believe in that. We really want to believe in silver bullets, whether it's source consciousness, God, colloidal silver, fucking, it could be anything, it could be fucking anything. Okay. Like we just want to know, like, this is going to fix it all. This is going to make my life better. This is what's going to cure my suffering. We want that. But to recognize that, to actually be honest with ourselves about that, just like being honest with ourselves about the need for control, the need to be liked, the need for certainty, all of this stuff, to just recognize it and be honest about it without judgment is what makes you aware of all of the shit that you do as a result of those things. And that allows you to make different choices. It's the willingness to see it again without judgment that allows you to make different choices. But that's the point is are you willing to just look? And that requires you to be here.
Yeah, and even those things like things look into the future. Someone will set some vacation and like be excited for that. Like those things can give temporary hits of certain feelings and experiences, but it's like how much is your focus on that? And as you go, then looking back, and it's like a willing trade that you can do, even looking back on fond memories. It's like something that separates you a bit. It desensitizes you a bit to the experience that you're having, but it's like a little bit of a trade. It's like you subdue this experience right now for the thoughts, the assumptions, all that stuff. It's like it feels like it can mitigate the intensity or just like everything that's going on right now, but you still feel it. It's just if you're unwilling to keep paying attention to it, like you feel it in yourself instead of just continuing on, without that need to think about something and use that as a buffer to just being in reality without a buffer, without so much of this thing that keeps you just slightly separate, slightly behind, slightly insensitive. Just like another focus on the assumption.
Which sounds like an excellent time to introduce our next guest, who is in the queue. I believe this is probably going to be our last caller for the episode, so we're going to let them in as they would like to talk about different levels of perception.
Okay.
Always a great conversation.
Diving in.
This would be Vincent. So Vincent, we appreciate you jumping in here and being part of the conversation. We'll just await your audio to connect.
Goes 3 dots become check.
Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
So you'd like to discuss the different levels of perception. Where would you like to start?
Well, this is my first time here, so I don't know. Should I introduce myself or
If
we
you would
just go
like to.
straight to the subject?
Oh, you're welcome.
I think I'll do both at the same time, so we'll come to the subject. Basically, I was practicing some yoga for maybe like 6 years or something, and at some point, especially during COVID, where like everything was closed, and I was dedicating like 3-4 hours per day every day for like maybe 9 months, just to Hatha yoga, Kriya yoga. It was very intense. It was very, very intense, and it crushed a lot of boundaries that I had in my body, but also in my mind. The whole perception, the whole idea of my identity as it is was mostly crashed, mostly crashed. And during those experiences, I had um, some very strange ones where there was this perception of now, right? Where basically at the beginning it was, well, some kind of a wake up call where I am here, here and now. Then this I disappears and only here and now stays. But then this kind of perception of this present starts to deepen and deepen and deepen and deepen, and it just lasts for like hours. I don't know, it just lasts for some time, and no thoughts, like nothing, complete space and nothing at all. But something changed, and I stopped doing all my practices at once. I just stopped everything because I just felt some kind of need to stop, some kind of like a blockage or something. Something didn't work as I wanted to. And my question is about this kind of levels of perception, because like right now talking to you, for example, like I am aware of the present moment. I'm aware of what I'm saying. It's like talking and listening at the same time, right? Where is no thought, nothing, right? But this here and now, this present, is not as deep, as not as powerful, is not as I'm trying to put it into words, but it's just complicated to explain it. But it's, let me put it another way. I like to play video games, for example, right? And when you play video games, your attention goes straight, this kind of tunnel vision inside of the game, right? So it's the same kind of thing, but with the present moment, where you don't lose the perception of now, but you go very, very deep into this center, like the core of the experience itself. It's easier when you meditate, when you just sit still and you can close your eyes or leave it as it is. But I mean, what is the, how should I put it? What are those levels? Like, what is it?
I think it's interesting because it's kind of like the honeymoon period with anything. You experience life in a kind of a superficial way, and then all of a sudden, through practice and then attention and focus on something, you actually start to experience life, and it starts feeling more fulfilling and more deep. And it seems magical and wonderful until eventually it becomes about you living deeply. It becomes about you going further. And all of a sudden it slips farther and farther and farther away. And you chase it more and more and more, and it gets farther and farther and farther away. And it's because there's the honeymoon period, but then there's the practice afterwards. And the practice afterwards is just sitting in it, not needing it to be more, right? Which means that, like you said earlier, you're like, this moment's not as deep. No, that's not true at all. This moment's exactly like every moment you've ever experienced that was deep. It's the same moment, right? The only difference is that you're trying to get to a memory. You're trying to get to an ideal, right? And it's destroying your experience of right now. And that's all it is. And that's the practice. That's why, the spiritual ego is so fucking insidious. You know, we get to this deeper experience, and then all of a sudden it becomes about, oh, let me take this, you know, and the ego's in there like, I'll make it better, and you know, and it fucks it all up. But it is just relaxing into it. Like, you've seen it, you know it's here, you know it's here. So it's not about getting anywhere, and all about just relaxing until it's obvious again. Right? The clarity finds you, and sometimes you got to go into the fucking mess again to come back and have that clarity refresh. So I would say, don't judge where you are right now. It's informing the swinging of the pendulum, right? The next time the clarity finds you, as it were, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that made total sense. I had to go through that to appreciate that like this.
This is the thing, like this kind of the cycle of self-construction and destruction. It just I just get so tired of it.
Yeah.
And you know, the moment when I say I, this kind of identity creates itself, right? But it just, I don't know, I'm trying to find without finding, but just I'm trying to perceive. I'm trying to perceive something that just,
Oh, yeah.
how would I put it? Just pulls me out of the present, of just here and now, and every time this kind of illusion of control, or some kind of like becoming better, becoming more than I am, and I'm just
It's just attention. You know, yoga helped you tap into it last time because you were paying attention, right? But then even with yoga, it stops working after a while if it becomes about you doing yoga, right? So it's just
yeah.
attention. So you can pay attention to anything, right? As long as it's not about you. You can pay attention to cooking your dinner. You can pay attention to the walk you're on, but attention is the practice. Attention without the need to get anywhere, just paying attention. And that's where you're getting past that need for satisfaction, you know, where you can just watch a bird chilling out on a branch and not need it to be anything, right? To not need the experience to be anything. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, right, this is dope. This is exactly what I want to experience, right? And but it's counterintuitive, right? And the fact that you're getting tired of that cycle indicates that it's changing, right? That's great, because eventually there's just nothing to do. There's no cycle except for the one we make ourselves, and that's just going through it until we get sick of it. So I'm encouraged by what you were saying.
Yeah. And I think as you go through things too, you start to notice, you know, the things that you tried to control, like that building over time of like perceptions, ways that you tried to build yourself up, make you into something. And so much of that is, you know, societally driven, community driven ways that other people, you know, build themselves up or distract themselves from things they don't want to look at. And you start to see all those things. And that's the beauty of life, is like being able to look at those and those situations, or jump into new opportunities where, you know, oh, I thought, you know, I was feeling pretty good about things, jumped into a new situation, and all these new unknowns, like opening up a door and the room's all dark and you walk in there and start to get to explore. And that's one of the amazing things about, you know, not measuring yourself so much, is that there is, you know, less concern about opening up new doors and just seeing what's in there, if it doesn't mean so much about me, you know, how I explore, how quickly, how well, how I'm doing the whole time is always going to be that question mark.
Oh yeah, Vince and I resonate so much with what you're talking about, and like the construction and the deconstruction. And I was just imagining, I'm like, you know, no, I haven't built a false idol in such a long time, as I'm holding a hammer, like about to hit. I was like, what? Where did this hammer come from? God, you know, damn, we did it again. And then it's like, yes, we did it again. Break out the sledgehammer. Boom, we're about to break this baby down. And just being able to, you know, not judge our progress, and not judge the constructions or the deconstructions, and just being able to take them both as opportunities to make the most of the moment that you're in, whether you're building or deconstructing a concept, you know, because that process is going to be ongoing, but it can feel lighter and not so begrudgingly done.
Absolutely. Vincent, I really appreciate you calling in. I know this is your first time. It's absolutely been a pleasure to chat with you. I hope we get a chance to do this again. And
The pleasure is mine. Thank you very much.
well, thank you. Hopefully we'll see you in a group soon.
Have a nice day, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, man.
Bye.
This has been a dope episode. I've
Yes,
been
it
enjoying
has.
the hell out of this for sure.
Seriously.
We do have one more question from the Discord. We have enough time to address it, but before we do, I wanted to just add a little bit on to our conversation with Vincent. A really helpful thing for me going through all this for like the first decade was, I guess, the concept or the recognition of grace as a possibility, as an alternative to control, as an alternative of trying to get to a place where you're okay just to deal with where you are now gracefully. And to me, the image is always of a dancer when I think of grace, right? Of somebody who is simply flowing with the movements and the music and the environment as it goes. So that comes down to a level of ease. That comes down to a level of self-expression and self-faith. And so I would say if there's anything I could pass on to our listener and to Vincent, grace, practice grace and see what that means to you. Because I think just paying a little bit of attention to that can be very beneficial in the same way that contemplating something like eternity can be very beneficial to how quickly you need to get somewhere. That said, here comes the question. All right. Do you think that the belief that everything is irrelevant can help you be free in this moment? Do and be whatever you want in this moment? Or is it damaging to think that everything is irrelevant? Now, I like this question, and I'm going to start this one just by saying, I don't think it's irrelevant. I think everything is incredibly relevant to everything else. In fact, fundamental to everything else. Everything is important, period. What it's not is personal. It's not that it's not relevant. It's not personal. It's not that it's not important. It's just not about you.
Not about me. What do you mean? Take it back.
But yeah, the building of no, the what was it? What was the question again? Yeah, we're
He's reading.
the relevant versus irrelevant. Yeah. I think it's similar to like the nothing matters, everything matters focus as well. It's like, I mean, it's basically the same thing. You said it's like, it's not relevant to you and like to know how you're doing along the way, but it's matters a lot to the moment. And like, you're going to experience the reflection of what you're expressing, like what you're giving off, where your focus is, how much control you're trying to maintain. It's like there's going to be a physical sense to assuming that there isn't a responsibility to everything that you do, like a responsibility to the experience that you're having, like a fundamental responsibility as the experience of what's happening. Like you're not something that's like in or out of experiences, like you're inherently connected to that experience. And so of course it's relevant. It's like, how could it not be relevant? There couldn't be anything I could fathom being more relevant because it's not disconnected and it's not something that's going anywhere specific, but it's vital to pay attention so you don't stumble and fall too much along the way. And assuming that it's irrelevant, it's just discounting so much of that responsibility and your experience too, and like your ability to pay super close attention, or your priority of it.
Yeah, and that's based on the assumption that what's relevant, or that you understand things so much so that that it just nothing matters. But when I was thinking about how it's not personal, it's like, it's not personal because you don't exist, not in the way that you think that you do. The person that's taking offense doesn't exist. So how can it be personal when you created this concept to take offense from other concepts aren't the priority. So it's, you know, I want it to be personal is another consideration. And the reason why I want it to be personal is because I want to be the priority. The concept wants to be the priority. The assumption wants to be the priority, but it's not, and it doesn't have to be. And when you can feel that you are taking offense where there doesn't need to be, it's because you created that person that is lacking, that's not getting something, that's missing out, that is somehow being treated unfairly. But just as easily as you created that person to take offense, you can deconstruct that person that needs to be offended, because it just doesn't matter unless you make it so.
Like, do you know you're offended? Are you sure of that? Or is that just the thing that's the thing that's doing it? Like, oh, I'm assuming I'm offended. Wait a second.
I'm caught in it. I can feel it. Therefore, I have to be.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what it is. We really do, you know, experience a feeling, make an assumption about the feeling, and then that validates the feeling, and then we respond to the feeling, and that perpetuates the feeling, and then we react to the perpetuated feeling and having a perception of life now, which continues to
And that
perpetuate
is the
the
assumption.
absolutely. Right. And it becomes this vicious circle. Before you know it, your head is completely jammed up your ass and you can't see anything but shit.
Yeah.
You know, and that's very much the point. But on that colorful note, we are wrapping up the episode here in a few moments. I just want to say thank you to our listener for joining us. I know we fell a little bit behind there with some of the episodes. We have just been fucking jam-packed full of shit to do. Andrew has been releasing docu-series videos and clips from our adventures. We have a bunch of raw episodes that are going to be coming out this week, as well as some other stuff. The business side of things is fucking exciting as hell. There's lots happening.
Changes.
That said, though, Port Alberni tickets are going to be publicly available as of this coming Sunday afternoon, probably 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So if you want to come to Port Alberni and you want to make sure you get your ticket, I would recommend just jumping on Patreon now. It's well worthwhile. Even if you jump on for 1 month, you can save up to $350 on your retreat ticket. And Port Alberni is going to be, admittedly, like the pièce de résistance in terms of the crowning achievement of dualistic unity so far, because it's going to be fucking dope. And we're going to go see whales. That's going to be fun. We got a 3-hour charter specifically for the DU crew. So I'm very excited about that. There's a bus ride from the airport to the lodge. It's like an hour and a half long. We stop in an old growth forest with trees that are literally like almost 1,000 years old. It's just a hell of an experience. We got a chef, yoga, live music. Every room has its own bathroom. The rooms are shared with one other bed, except for the king room, which is still available, which has its own bathroom, and you can bring a guest to the king room. There's just a lot happening. So if you have any questions about that, give us a shout out. Let us know, and we'd be happy to answer any of those questions. Or you can go to the Discord, go to the retreat plan section, ask there, or even in the general thread. I'm sure Jazz is going to be like, no, go to the retreat plan center section. But either way, ask a question, and anybody who's been to one of these retreats will be happy to tell you what their experience was, for sure, because it's better you hear it from them than from us, because we have different experiences at the retreat, and your experience is also going to be unique in that it is going to be your experience, which is what the retreat's all about, being you, without anywhere else to go. So if you want to come just chill out, be at ease, enjoy the moment, do some dope shit with us, this is definitely one of the best opportunities to do so. And it's a solid like week. It's from one Saturday to the following Sunday. By the end of this, you're going to feel like you were with us for months. It's fantastic. But we got about 30 seconds left, so I'll let you guys wrap it up for today.
Cool. Yeah, it's been a great call-in show. Really appreciate everyone for calling in and doing all that good stuff. And I'm pumped for that Port Alberni retreat. And yeah, it's fantastic time. Beautiful nature, a lot of cool forests, some ass park, a lot of good stuff there. So yeah, Amanda, close her up.
I love everything that's been said. I thank you everybody for calling in. It's been an amazing chat, and I look forward to many more. See you later, everyone.
Bye, everyone.